Hi, good morning. So I just got out of the shower, that's why I look like this, but that's okay. So I need to make your video for today. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna discuss Gettysburg, but before we get into Gettysburg, we're gonna go ahead and go through our men, okay? So this is the Confederate side, also known as the Rebels or Johnny Reb or the Gray, okay? Confederate States of America. So, or the South. Okay. So this is Jefferson Davis, their president. This is Thomas Jackson, who got a nickname Stonewall. This is Longstreet, James Longstreet. This is Jeb Stuart and General Robert E. Lee, which we're going to be talking a lot about today because the Gettysburg is when Lee brings his army into the north. It's the farthest north he ever gets through the entire war, either before or after. He never goes that far in the north again after Gettysburg. Okay? All right. And then over here we have Abraham Lincoln and George McClellan, Winfield Scott, Ulysses S. Grant, Ambrose Burnside, and William Tecumseh Sherman. Okay? So this is the Union side, or the North, or the United States of America, or the Yankees. Okay? That's these guys. All right. So we're going to discuss Gettysburg. Gettysburg is a battle that actually only has one name. It's only ever known as Gettysburg, which I thought was kind of interesting. Gettysburg is an accidental war. Okay, so Gettysburg is a city in Pennsylvania. You can actually still go there. You can go to the cemetery because they have a cemetery. They have a house. My dad's been there. I have not been there. They have a house that still has like the impression of the ball, cannonball in it, or maybe even the whole cannonball. I can't remember what he said right now. And it was a bloody war. It was a turning point in the war between the states, and it was a very long war. It lasted for 3 whole days. And in the Battle of Gettysburg, there were actually smaller battles that occurred. Cemetery Hill, Copp's Hill, Little Round Top, Big Round Top. There was a whole, like, battle inside the battle. It was. Okay, remember we've talked about a war is a whole bunch of battles that make up a war. Well, Gettysburg kind of is like its own little war because Gettysburg has a whole bunch of battles that make up the Battle of Gettysburg. So it's kind of interesting. So the Battle of Gettysburg begins July 1st through the 3rd in 1863. And like I said, it was an accidental battle. So the blockades were working. Remember Winfield Scott's idea of running the blockades so that nothing can go in and out of the South. So the South was in lack of food, and that included Lee's army. Lee's army did not have much supplies. So what Lee did was he decided to go up into Pennsylvania looking for food. That's what they were looking for, food and shoes. Okay, because there was a shoe factory there. And so they were looking for food and shoes. And what happens is that the Union Army is also there marching around. I don't really know why they were in the area. Maybe that's just where they were located for the time being. And they accidentally meet. And as they accidentally meet, there's some skirmishes that go on. So they like shoot at each other. And then they both start bringing reinforcements. So Meade is the general that is in charge of Gettysburg at the time. And he is bringing in more reinforcements as well as Lee. So as they both start bringing in more reinforcements, the big battle begins. So the second day is when the big battle is. So if you look in your book, let me grab your book. you will see that this is dedicated to the 3 days of Gettysburg. So look at the different maps, okay? The red is the Confederacy and the blue is the Union. There are lots and lots of books and movies and shows and stuff on Gettysburg, and I looked for something to tack to you, but everything always has photographs. So I have not um, put anything on because of the photographs. So if you and your parents want to look at these things more in depth, feel free. I just was concerned about some of the photographs, okay? Because remember, this is the time in history where they finally have cameras. So all these pictures are actually camera pictures of the time. Now the cameras looked very different, but the big thing was that this was the first war, the Civil War. The whole thing was the first war ever photographed. They wanted people at home to see what was happening, and so it's very hard to find some big battle such as Gettysburg without pictures. So one group of people that I really like is in 4 minutes. So you've seen some of their videos, okay? Like Ulysses S. Grant in 4 minutes. They have a Gettysburg in 4 minutes. That was going really well, and then we got to a picture, and then I stopped. So um, if you and your mom or you and your dad want to look at that and then maybe watch it together, that's up to you guys, but I didn't want to put it on for everybody, okay? All right, so Battle of Gettysburg. So in the Battle of Gettysburg, many, many, many people were lost in this battle. There's little things like like I said, there's Cemetery Hill. Culp's Hill. Little Round Top. And then Big Round Top. There's a famous charge called Pickett's Charge. Okay. And a big issue occurred when the cavalry did not come when they were supposed to. Okay? All right. So, these were different battles. One of the biggest battles was Little Round Top. So what happened is when the Union first got there, they took the high ground. And in battle, the high ground is the most important because you can look down on your enemy, you can see for a long way, you can shoot at them, and they have to come up to get you, so they're coming at you. You can also see the different things that the other military people are doing, your enemy. And it's just a much better position to be in. It's easier to defend because you're looking down on them as they're coming up. You can shoot them, okay? So Little Round Top, the Union hill was on that hill. And they were in what's called like a fishhook. Well, the whole thing was kind of like a fishhook. And so the Confederates' idea was to come up there and go around the back of the Union Army. It's called a flanking. And that way you have the enemy on both sides of you, and then you kind of converge in. And so that was their plan. And so they kept going up the hill, but it kept not working because of a man named Chamberlain. He is from Maine. He was with the... I can never remember the number. My son always knows. The group from Maine. And he kept basically his men in the proper places that the Confederacy could not come through there. It was quite a feat. He actually got a medal for it and everything because he kept them down away from the flanking the Union Army. Okay. Culp's Hill was actually a fun fact. Is one of the people on the Confederacy side who was trying to take it. His last name was Culp. Okay, and that was actually his family's land at one point. Okay, and so it was kind of interesting that he was like symbolically trying to retake his land. I just thought that was interesting. All right, Pickett's charge. So this is a very terrible thing that happens during the Gettysburg Battle. And a lot of people just are astounded by it. I am as well. So what happened was that there was a hill, and the Union Army was there, and they had their cannons all lined up. And the general in charge was called Pickett. Okay, and he was ordered by Robert E. Lee to send his men across this open field up to try to take the Union's position. So there was a fence in the way. There was a ditch in the way. And so the Confederacy pulled down a few parts of the fence, but basically it bottlenecked them. So you had an army this big, and then they had to go through a place here and a place here, okay? So they had to scrunch down and go through the place and then come out onto this open field. Or they had to jump over the fence, which some of them did that too. But basically, they had no protection, they had no cover, they had no reinforcement. So as they're marching across this giant open field, as they are going through these little places in the gate, because once they got over the fence, yeah, then it was all open field. And basically the Union Army just sat at the top of this hill and just shot down at them. And over 90% of the men were wounded or killed in Pickett's charge. So Pickett goes back to General Lee after the charge, and General Lee says, hey, grab your guys and get ready for something else. And Pickett looks at him and says, I don't have a regiment. I have nobody. And so after that, Pickett really didn't respect Lee at all because of the amount of men he lost. And so that was like a huge deal. And that was a big turning point. So Lee figured out at that point that, hey, we're not going to win. And he actually grabbed up his guys and left. At the end of Gettysburg, he tells them that the defeat is his fault. So a piece that not a lot of people talk about with the Pickett's charge is that Mr. Longstreet, he was supposed to be there with his cavalry. Okay. Oh, I wrote. His cavalry. Okay. He was supposed to be there with his cavalry, which is a bunch of guys on horses. That's what a cavalry is. A bunch of guys on horses. And he got delayed. Well, he wasn't really in a big hurry anyway because it was an accidental war kind of thing. But he was supposed to be here in the amount of time that Lee would have needed him. Lee sent off a messenger saying, hey, get here, get here. And Longstreet said, okay, I'll be here at this time. They get lost. And they end up not getting there till the battle is practically over, which Lee was planning on him being there for the Pickett's charge, but he had complete faith he was going to get there in time, and so he never called off the charge, and that's the problem that occurred. All right. The Battle of Gettysburg, remember, is a turning point. Of the war. Although the Union and the Confederacy both lost a whole bunch of people, the Union could actually replenish their people. Because remember, we said that was one of the advantages at the beginning of the Civil War, is that the Union had way more people than the Confederacy did. Because remember, the Union, okay, all those northern states, they do a lot of factory, a lot of manufacturing. They have a bunch of people in a smaller amount of space. Whereas in the South, the Confederacy, remember, they have the giant plantations, which are really big farms, and they have a lot less people because they're way more spread out. So Lee lost a lot of people he could never get back. In fact, after the Battle of Gettysburg, they lost so many people that even the South said, "Hey, slaves, hi, would you like to fight in the Confederate Army? If you do, we'll give you your freedom at the end." So actually, after Gettysburg, there were slaves and former slaves fighting for both sides of the war, okay? Because they had lost so many men. And that was a really big problem. And of course, they also didn't get any of the supplies that they were hoping for. No shoes, no food. It was a really big problem. Okay? And so that's what happens. Let me see if there's anything I forgot. Sorry, guys, I'm getting my glasses from behind you. All right, let's see if there was anything that I wanted to tell you that I forgot. Okay, so after this war is over, devastating as it was, they end up deciding to make it a national cemetery. Okay? Now, back then, they didn't have very many national cemeteries. Actually, I think Gettysburg is the first one. I feel like that's true, but I'm not positive. So, so what they do is that they're going to have this big ceremony. So they bury all the dead people. They're going to have this big ceremony. And they're not even planning to invite Abraham Lincoln. Because they thought, he's going to be long and droll and we don't want him. And so somebody convinces them, excuse me, that for the national cemetery, they really should invite Lincoln. So they end up inviting Abraham Lincoln and the other guy. Nobody ever remembers the other guy. So let's see. So the man who got this all together was a man named David Willis, and he was a lawyer in Gettysburg, and he's the one who wanted the national cemetery. So he invited Edward Everett, okay, to come and speak, to say something at the dedication of the cemetery. And so, I can't remember how long he spoke. He spoke a really long time, though. He was invited 4 months before the event. It doesn't say, I can't remember. It was like an hour and a half speech. It was really long. And he actually went first, okay? And then after him, President Lincoln went. Remember how I said they didn't want to invite him? So like 2 months ahead of time, they invite President Lincoln. Not 2 months, I'm sorry. 2 weeks. So 2 weeks before, they finally invite President Lincoln. So he's got to come up with a speech. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't need to be much of anything. So the way the story goes, at least the way I've heard it, is on the train, he's writing the speech. And he's rewriting the speech. And he's writing it again. Okay? And so he gets there, and his speech is only like 2 minutes. 2.5, something like that, minutes. And it's only 272 words. Okay? So it's 272 words. It's about 2.5 minutes or so. And he gets up and he delivers it, and he is best known for it. It's always something everybody hears. In fact, some students memorize it for school. Okay, it's called the Gettysburg Address. Okay, fourscore and 7 years ago, our founding fathers came forth. Okay, and it goes on. So again, it's only 272 words. And that speech is remembered. And nobody remembers anything Mr. Everett said, which I've always found interesting, you know. So I say, keep it short, okay? Because as you know, Lincoln's address, like 2.5 minutes, is remembered, but Everett spoke so much, nobody remembers what he said. I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, so Lincoln's speech was about the dead, about the men who sacrificed. It's a very profound speech, and I'm still looking for a video to put on for you to hear it. All right. All right. So let's talk about Clara Barton. Clara Barton's pretty awesome, and God really prepared her for what she was going to do later in life. So Clara Barton was in a family, and she was the youngest. So she had brothers, and she had sisters. And her dad had fought in the Revolutionary War. Okay? So her sisters taught her how to cook, and sew. She had a mom too, just in case you were wondering. Her sisters taught her how to cook and sew and clean and all these kinds of things. Her brothers taught her how to play ball and ride a horse and fix things and jump and leap. And so these were very important things that she needed to know when she was older. And her dad taught her all about war. So he'd come home from work, and they would sit on the floor, and they had these little army guys, and he would show her the different battles in the Revolutionary War. So she learned all about military strategy from her dad. She learned how to do practical things like cooking and cleaning and sewing and taking care of sick people from her sisters, and she learned practical things like horse riding, and which wasn't considered a girl thing to do, and playing ball and all those things. Okay, so her brother falls off the roof of their barn at one point, and he's really hurt, and he needs a nurse. And back then they didn't have like professional people that you bring in, or they didn't really have like hospitals like you think about them today. And so basically, if you were really hurt and you needed help, a family member would need to do that. So here's where mom comes in. So mom taught Clara how to nurse her brother, and then she learned stuff as she was doing it too. Has that ever happened where you start learning things as you do them? So Clara was taught all these things as a kid. Okay? So when she is 16, she goes off to be a teacher. And because there's people that are her pupils, her students, that are older than her, especially the boys, they don't give her a lot of respect. So she says, hey, come on out to the field and let's play ball. And so she could hit, she could run, she could catch. So she kind of beat those boys, and then they respected her. Okay? So as the Civil War starts, she notices that a lot of soldiers are coming into the hospitals, because now they have kind of a hospital thing going on. And they're coming into the hospitals, and they are dying. And what she's discovering is if they would have gotten help out on the field of battle right away, they would have lived. So what she decides to do is she decides she should be a nurse out on the battlefield. Now think about her training from her dad. She would be working on a person. She would be paying attention to what's going on around her, and she would know very quickly if she needed to move because she understood the strategies of war. So she could keep herself safer Okay, you're never safe on a battlefield. But she could keep herself safer because she could see what was happening around her and understand what was going on. And so these are the ways that God prepared her for what he would call her to do in her life later. Okay. Clara Barton began the American Red Cross. There was a National Red Cross at the time. She began the American Red Cross. Okay. So, and when she first started it, it did not go so well, but the thing that finally brought other people on board and helped her was that there was a disaster. That's what the American Red Cross does. If there's a hurricane, a tornado, a very bad ice storm, or your house catches on fire, the American Red Cross goes in to help. So there was a big disaster, and Clara Barton went in to help and said, I'm not leaving until everyone is back to normal. So she stayed for a very long time, which then convinced a lot of people. Okay, Clara Barton did not nurse on her own the whole battlefield of every battle. She grabbed other people, volunteer nurses, that would also work with her on the battlefield. Okay, it was not easy for a woman to get on the battlefield. You weren't allowed to as a woman. So she actually had to go to President Lincoln with her idea about going on the battlefield and plead to him, hey, please, let me do this. And he is the one who said, yes, go ahead, Clara, go for it. Okay? So Clara Barton was very brave. Clara Barton was prepared by God for what God would call her to do in the future, way back when she was a little kid. Okay? Probably not even thinking anything of this except this is so cool. Okay? So there are things that maybe God will teach you in your childhood or in your young adulthood to prepare you for what he's going to call you to do later. So that's everything I have. I need to go make a video for 5th grade on science. And I made like tons yesterday in math for you guys. So it's a video career. My husband, yeah, he's so funny. He thinks if I get to 100 YouTube videos, I should have a party. So, I don't know. It's all good. All right, so I want you to just now read the pages. The page, actually, is one page. And look at the maps more closely, okay, that are in your book. So you're just going to be looking at, oh, I didn't write it down. Hang on, sorry. 262 and 263. That's all I want you to do. There's no worksheets or anything with these two. Okay, tomorrow we're going to discuss the Battle of Fredericksburg. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, guys.